Hi, my name is Cary Fukunaga. You might remember my last film, Sin Nombre. I have a new film, Jayne Eyre, it's out, and here's a clip from it now.
Jayne Eyre, weißt du, wo böse Menschen nach dem Tod hinkommen?
Sie kommen in die Hölle.
Und was ist die Hölle? Jayne, wo bist du?
Wenn du nicht stillsitzt, wirst du angebunden. Sie ist eine Grube voller Feuer.
Willst du etwa in diese Grube fallen und dort für immer und ewig brennen?
Die Leute denken, sie seien gütig, aber sie sind hartherzig. Geh raus.
Kinder, ich ersuche euch, Jayne Eyre die Hand der Freundschaft zu verweigern.
So now I'm going to show you some of the films I sort of picked out from the shelves that either were some of my favorite films as a kid or films that, like, as an adult, have sort of influenced my filmmaking. What you guys call Das Reich der Sonne is Empire of the Sun. I saw this movie when I was about 8 or 9, and at that time I wanted to be a fighter pilot. My grandpa was a fighter pilot, and I was obsessed with World War II history. And I knew Spielberg films, obviously, because of E.T. and things like that. But I saw that film, and it was like one of the first times I felt like completely like transported by a story, and like I didn't want to be Superman, I wanted to be that kid. I saw it as a child and probably shouldn't have. This was probably way too violent for me to see at the time I saw it, but I was absolutely horrified after I saw the film. And Goodfellas, just by the violence, and I was terrified about mob stuff. And I think my dad was obsessed with gang life. I think he thought he was like a Chinese gangster, even though he's Japanese. And I don't know, it was just one of those things that the story captured me. Then as I got older, I learned about filmmaking and about cinema techniques. I think I've rewatched this film as an adult more times than any other film, just because I think, although Casino might be like the masterpiece of Scorsese's gangster genre, Goodfellas was like the raw, sort of inspired one of it, I think, even more than Mean Streets. It's hard to pick one Malick film, because I love all his films so much. Especially these three, his first three films, Badlands, Days of Heaven, and Thin Red Line. Thin Red Line was the first Malick film I ever saw, and then after I saw that one, I raided the video library at my university to watch the other ones, and then that's when I discovered Days of Heaven. And I think the story goes, don't quote me on this because I don't know if it's actually true, but the story goes, the little girl who does the narration on it wasn't actually planned originally. That was brought in sort of, you know, the editing stage because the narrative didn't make any sense. But it's one of my favorite parts of the storytelling because just the sort of the non sequiturs and her sort of observations as they're sort of out, you know, on these planes at the turn of the century, and she's sort of playing with the dirt, and she says she wants to be a mud doctor, and things like that are just sort of like genius, sort of like introductions to a character, and just the cinematography and the way it was made. It was just a gorgeous film. So I think it really influenced the way I made Sin Nombre, actually. I wished, you know, in terms of like the migrant workers and stuff. Oh yeah, Loves of a Blonde, Milos Forman. Amazing Czech director. What I loved in this film was its simplicity and how anti-structure it is. Like nowadays, you think of films as like 3-act structures, and like you have this thing that happens at the beginning, and then there's a whole sort of like development of the drama and the denouement, and then you have the end. And Loves of a Blonde is basically a 2-act film. It's all about a girl, you know, who falls in love with the pianist at this this big sort of town event as they're mixing the town's factory girl workers with the soldiers in town, and he promises her all these things, gets her to sleep with her, and then she basically follows him to town, I think to Prague, and like shows up at his parents' house and tells his parents that she's his girlfriend, and then he comes home with another girl. Really simple story. But definitely, of the contemporary sort of directors, P.T. Anderson is my favorite. I think every one of his films from Hard Eight, which he originally called Sydney, to Boogie Nights, Magnolia, that he has yet to make a bad film. But what I loved about Punch Drunk Love was it was such a departure from his other films that are so formalistic. I didn't say formula, but formal in terms of its like their mise en scène. And Punch Drunk had a sort of irreverence to it that is sort of like, you know, it's a throwback to like Godard's first color films in terms of its look, and also in terms of its sort of how much it's just raw and sort of punchy. And I think he came and talked at my university. I went to NYU, and he talked about, hey, he wanted to make a short, like 88-minute film. And I completely understand that desire, like tell a short story, a short feature-length story, but make it something that, you know, that pops from the screen. And I think every moment in this film, from the dialogue to the weird sort of like surreal events that happen, from like the car accident in the beginning and that little sort of like organs like placed in front of his workplace. It's just such great little touches and adds to the whole sort of like it's very percussive. Like I say, punchy, it's percussive. It feels like a whole sort of cacophonous sort of like narration. So really love this film. Can't really think of one sort of like bad film that like is like a guilty pleasure. Because I think even the bad ones are good ones, like Goonies, you know.
You like the Goonies?
Yeah, of course. Who doesn't like Goonies? But I can say, like, on airplanes, I tend to like watch romantic comedies. And I remember on a flight back from Vienna watching this is not a romantic comedy, it's for kids, but Bridge to Terabithia is a kid's movie. And I was basically like crying so much I had like snot coming out of my nose, and like the flight attendant had to come and wipe my nose and ask me if I was okay, and it was just the movie. So yeah, I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff on airplanes, you know, corny stuff. So those are some of the movies that were my favorites growing up and still influence me today. Jayne Eyre, my film, comes out in cinemas December 1st. I hope you all go check it out. And if you're interested in seeing some of the movies that I talked about right here, check out moviepilot.de. Thank you.